So leading into, because Aidan, I know you have your sub element that you then immediately break the shadow root jerk. You ready to tee up and show what you've been working on?
Sure. Could I get sharing abilities?
While we're in limbo here, I wanted to get this on camera to remind myself that the host selectors that were local, I did have a comment in there that says don't try to select these CSS variables, and I took it out for some reason, so I need to add that back in. Does that make sense? So like whenever we tried to override the Xcard top color background color default, that would not have worked. You're right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And I had a note in there, but I took it out. So, cut.
All right, fire away, Aidan.
All right. So I found myself a while ago wanting to have a pretty standardized way of having a announcement banner. It ended up working pretty well. So let me share screens here.
That would help.
Yeah. This is Storybook. This is BUlib. We have a welcome page here. So we were in a situation where I wanted to have an announcement banner in case anything went wrong or there was like a pandemic or anything. And then also wanted it to work if JavaScript wasn't enabled or if we were on IE or some other thing happened. So I have a CSS version of it, a CSS and HTML only version of it, and I have a web components version of it. But the benefit of having it be web components as well is that you get some nice dismiss functionality. So just walking through here, there's the basic color stuff. This uses CSS variables as well. And then there's, call to actions. Just find the part that's most interesting here. The memory part, I did find interesting. So you get onto a page, say this guy, and you've heard a lot about this thing going on called COVID, and you're sick of hearing about it, so you just dismiss it. You want it to be so that you don't refresh the page, and every single time you hit any of these sites, it goes away. So you need to store it somehow. What I did is I wrote a really simple memory storage helper that just looks into local storage for you, and that'll work across all the different sites. One of the consistent themes for anytime BU Libraries is using web components is that we're using them on like a bunch of different sites with a bunch of different platforms and can't rely on what technology that thing's using. So we don't do a whole app based out of web components. We kind of do that individual use idea. So we needed something that communicates between sites, has some sort of memory without doing a giant MobX solution. So local storage is a great use case for that. We also wanted to be in a situation where I don't have to be a developer who knows HTML in order to put one of these things on. So we found something in, I think originally this was in a WRLC, is a library consortium. Forget what the WR stands for, but they had a Primo customization. This idea came from them. But basically we wanted to set it up so that you could say like what code it is, give a brief description, and be able to control whether these banners show up on all of your websites just from a Google Sheets. So you don't have to know anything about how any of all this works. You can just press one of these buttons and it shows up or doesn't show up on a page. I'm going to demo that really quick. This is staging site, and this is showing announcement banner for BUL law. If I unclick that and then refresh the page, it's in the connected callback when it first gets connected to the page. It's noticing that the code that it's been given aligns with one of these guys, and then looks for the show banner and all the other information. And if that's off, then it doesn't show. But if it's on, then it does. So that was neat. So we've actually got to the point where we have a bunch of these across all of our sites, and the way that you kind of all of that, you can look these side by side. We'll be able to. I'm only sharing one of them. That's terrible.
Yeah, the single window will do that.
Yep, it will. So before, when I showed you a cool demo and you just saw something, you saw me refreshing a page and something disappearing. this now on the like libcal site. So I go here, and I don't have to know how any of this stuff works as like a, you know, my product manager or something. You just deselect that for libcal, refresh the page, and then it goes away. Or if I want to kind of change this from a like just informational thing to a warn, maybe change the date here because March 18th.
Not gonna lie, that's pretty slick.
Yeah, how did you interface with that?
It's really simple. It's really surprising. So all you have to do is add a, I don't know, can I do this? Remember this? Alt equals JSON. I think that was it.
Oh, so you have a public document.
Yeah, it's a public document. It's published somewhere.
Oh.
So you're, instead of grabbing the UI version from GitHub, you're just grabbing the JSON version and parsing the JSON. So I'll get the code for that real quick and share that out.
That's really cool.
And
Yeah.
a great use case for web components too.
Yeah, I was really surprised. So I actually was happy to implement this before this whole thing. So this was able to be used by my advisor when I was out sick and at a conference. So you're able to just add these announcement banners to all the sites. So yeah, pulling up the code real quick. Yep. So I'm building that. This is in a branch.
Hey, there's that create render route.
Your favorite. So yeah, you just feed it an API code, and then it's just doing this, and yeah, it's just the public version of it, and then alt equals JSON. So I'll grab that. Please hold. I have to replace the. So I was trying to figure out a way. What I thought about doing was creating an open version of this if you guys are interested in this. And instead of, like, you give it a list of codes from this API. So you have like some list of these, and it'll just show whatever it finds in that based on the codes that you give it. So you give it an API, you give it again, the ID of the Google spreadsheet. And then say you want, you know, the code for Primo all, libcal, and libguides, and you just make your own version of whatever this thing is. You give me the ID of the Google sheet, and I can, as long as you're following this basic outline, I can show you any announcement banner on any site, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And it's actually remarkably simple. It's just yeah. I'll show a link to just this code and add that to the chat. Chat again.
I would call it a poor man's CMS, as it were, to add a CMS feature to a non-CMS website, but that's really awesome.
Yeah. I totally wants to chat here.
Yeah, and I've seen
Here we go.
educators kind of hack together like grade response type of stuff, or like having, because you can make those Google Sheets public, right? So then
Yeah.
anybody can contribute to them. And if you set in motion some standards as far as what the inputs are, yeah, you get a really cheap and easy cloud delivered JSON API.
Yeah, and one other interesting thing, I'll pull it up really quick.
Guess you could even put a Google form in front of that sheet. That way you get people to fill it out the right way.
And that's another way that I've seen some educators use before. And I was like, huh, I would never think to do that.
What's neat too is you can have multiple ones. So I have one just kind of labeled all. If you see it in the spreadsheet that my window management is terrible right now. Apologies. But there's this all here on line 13. You can have that all show up on all of the different sites. And if they dismiss it and store their dismissal into a local storage variable, they don't have to dismiss it on every separate platform that they're on, and it shows up on all the different platforms. So here I'm actually using, there's like a specific view for Primo. Then there's all of the Primo, regardless of views. And then there's every site that BU has. So we're able to show that at specific varying depths and show multiple ones stacked on top of each other. So if I know I want to inform all of our websites about COVID, for example, I can just write it up here and just click all, and I know that all of the ones that's been added to, it's going to show up on. And that's basically it.
And that setting then, when you say show up on every site or not every site,
Mhm.
that's on the same domain or subdomain, or
Any domain.
how are you managing that? Because I was under the impression local storage only worked at one domain.
I will double check that. It might work only. You might be right. It's only on one domain. And because I was checking it. We can check that really quickly.
There are hacks to get around that, but
Yeah.
Probably on the top level BU domain, right?
If our sites were organized better, then yes, they would be.
Yeah, you could do it on the top level BYU or BU domain, or if you remember what single sign-on systems were like about 5 or 6 years ago, Google and Microsoft would actually bounce you constantly to an iframe domain and then pull your token off of that.
Years ago? Do you mean today?
Yeah, that one too. They still do it that way?
Oh yeah, you get
Oh,
bounced
okay.
all over the place when you try to log into any Microsoft product.
So yeah, if you open,
I was wrong. It's just for site. Yeah, it's just for specific domains.
So if you use that askalibrarian.bu.edu, you could have like just a static page basically, and then your implementation tying into it would be to open an invisible iframe that uses post message, and basically just the script on the other side just broadcasts that little setting.
Sure. Okay. That's interesting.
If it's that annoying. I don't know if it's that annoying.
No, it's not that annoying. It's probably overkill.
And a fun fact I learned that I'll be implementing in my web components, but local storage has an event listener. So you can actually synchronize like multiple windows on the same domain based on setting flags in local storage. So like I've seen a colloquial use case is like if you have like a markdown editor and then like a preview window, when you save quote unquote, even though it's not going into the server, you save the markdown, it can just save the value to local storage, and then the preview event kicks that over and he sees that and it just refreshes the markdown. And then you never had to go to the server. There's no eventing between the two. They're completely separate pages.
Can you observe changes to the local state?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
You get it's like a general, it's almost just like post message where you get this general bucket and then you can ask the event like what value changed or did anything change, and then you can go inspect it if you need to.
That is very cool.
Yeah, that is neat. I didn't know that. Aidan, that is a very neat use case. I like that.
Thanks.
I was just decrying a lack of standardization in messaging at the university in my class this week.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not like we have a crisis and we have these web components no one's using and we certainly couldn't just put them on every site, but instead everybody has to go and do it themselves.
Yeah, that's been an interesting similar problem at BU, is that it's no longer a technical problem, which is awesome. It's a cultural problem, which is harder often.